Good evening. I'm David Smith, and this is Week in Review. This week we'll be discussing the continuing warfare between the administration and the Catholic Church regarding Obamacare and certain of its provisions. We'll also be discussing the President's recent contempt of court in the state of Georgia, where he failed to appear for a hearing regarding his eligibility on the primary ballot. And we'll also be discussing author C.S. Lewis. We'd like to welcome all of our viewers this evening. We'd also like to remind you of our Twitter hashtag, WIRTV, and also our email address, David, Eric, or Daniel at weekinreview.tv. We'd like to hear from you. We appreciate your comments, observations, criticisms, or suggestions. Well, this evening we'll be discussing the President's decision, his administration's decision, to enforce sterilization, abortion, and contraceptive coverage in the health care bill. And Eric, why don't you lead off with this?
Yeah, sure. We all remember when Obamacare was in the House, when they were trying to pass it, and Bart Stupak, I forget exactly where he was from, Representative Stupak was holding it up, and then supposedly Obama gave an executive order that no church or religious organization would be mandated to cover abortion or sterilization or any of these things, and now it's back. Basically, Obama's word is worth nothing.
I was surprised he had it issued through the Department of Health and Human Services. Kathleen Sebelius, who is the Secretary of Health and Human Services, supposedly is a Catholic.
Yeah, supposedly a Catholic, yeah.
So
well, Nancy Pelosi's supposedly a Catholic, too.
Yes. Well, they have all of these faux Catholics, I guess we could call them.
Yeah.
Who are supporting the administration's promotion of these provisions. And the President had promised the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, especially their president, Cardinal-elect Dolan, that these provisions would not be enforced, that there would be exceptions for religious organizations and healthcare services provided by them, and of course insurance provided to their employees as well. But this just seems to be another time when the
Another
president and his
betrayal.
administration have thumbed their nose at a significant portion of the electorate. So,
Well, yeah, I hear there were promises made, too, to all these people. Like I said, I remember the famous Bart Stupak one, but I hear that, well, Nancy Pelosi, remember, was telling bishops and priests to tell people to rally for the health care bill.
oh yeah, I remember
Now
that.
all this has been betrayed, and I don't see anybody going over to Nancy Pelosi and asking her why she betrayed her church. I don't even know why she belongs to the church. I mean, if she doesn't believe in it, why doesn't she just become a Unitarian or something?
Oh. Well, I heard today that Sister Teresa Keene, who is the president of the Catholic Health Care Association, who lobbied strongly for the bill when it was promised that abortion, contraception, sterilization, etc., there would be an exemption for religious health care providers and for their employees, came out today and said that she had to reconsider her support for Obamacare because she had been given these assurances, and based on those assurances, she went public with a support for Obamacare.
Yeah.
And, of course, now she's left with, in a very embarrassing position.
Yeah. Well, I just want to make it clear to all those religious people out there who are more liberal that the hard left is not your friend. They're going to betray you every chance. And another good example, this is outside the government. This is, of course, the schoolgirls at Rhode Island, a story to make anybody sick, is that these Occupy people, there was every year Rhode Island, they have a little pro-life rally at the Capitol in Rhode Island, and Catholic schoolgirls come. Of course, they're in a club. It's all voluntary and everything. And this year, the Occupy movement pelted them with condoms.
Oh, good
And
grief.
what's even more sickening about this story is the Occupy people had asked the state of Rhode Island to let them use a homeless shelter, and the state said, no, we have enough homeless people, we can't support you. So the church had been letting them use one of their shelters. So these leftists are not your friends. They will betray you every chance.
Do we need to call them leftists, or do we need to call them Marxist, which is what they are?
Yeah, let's just call them Marxists.
You know, we
That's
try
much
to soften things and be courteous, and sometimes we just need to come out and call a spade, as they say.
Yeah, progressive just means a Marxist. The only difference between a progressive and somebody who calls himself a Marxist is the progressives don't believe in the violent revolution. They believe in doing it through a takeover of the government like we had here, lies, underhanded dealings.
Well, with the recent, last weekend, the Oakland Occupy movement again wound up in a conflict with the police. Apparently, they went into City Hall, which I'm wondering why they're claiming the door was unlocked. Well, who unlocked it? City Hall is closed on the weekend. Who in City Hall opened that door so that they could get in there? Because they brought out the American flag from the city council chambers and attempted to burn it.
Yeah. And as we all know, Mayor Kwan is one of the most liberal mayors in the whole United States, and she's bent over backwards for these people. And this is how she's gotten repaid.
Well, this looks like we're going to...
Well, so this is the first time. You remember when the Occupy Wall Street got evicted from Zuccotti Park, they tried to take over a piece of land owned by the Episcopal Church there that had actually been helping them with food and blankets.
And that caused an incident because it was all fenced off. So it was obviously not land that could be, occupied, without trespassing.
Yeah, it's called private property. We still have private property rights.
Yes,
and like I said,
Well, that was the whole thing
person,
about Oakland, was they tried to take over what was it, a sports arena that had been closed for quite a number of years, unoccupied, but still private property. And they felt that they had a right to go in there and to occupy it as a center for operations for the Occupy movement, simply because the owner wasn't utilizing it for anything.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the progressives, Marxists, if you're of any religion, and I mean Christian, Muslim, Jewish, pagan, or you're somebody who believes in the separation of church and state, these people will betray you. For them, there's no difference between church and state. You will have to worship the state.
Which is what the definition of Marxist is. There is no entity greater than the state.
That's right. There's pages and pages in the Communist Manifesto that tells how to rip apart religion and family.
That seems to be what they're aiming for, because this provision in the health care bill, which forces the purchase of contraception, sterilization, and abortion in your insurance, is obviously an assault on religious freedom, and a denial of your ability to adhere to your own personal convictions.
That's it. I just want to make this clear, too. When we say we have religious liberty, it doesn't mean just belief. It means practice.
Yes.
So all you guys in the ACLU who are applauding this, just remember, they can say, oh, you can believe anything you want, you just can't publish it. If you let them drive a wedge between belief and practice, there's no stopping them.
Well, I know the courts have defined limits to, you can believe in child sacrifice. You just can't practice it.
Yeah.
You can believe in, you can be an Aztec and believe in human sacrifice, but you can't do it.
You just can't. Yeah.
But in this instance, there's no,
Well, it's a practice that's been tolerated for centuries in the United States.
Yeah. So we're looking at but this, I can't believe the administration is quite this arrogant. You're attempting to assault the beliefs of nearly 1/4 of the population of the United States. And if they think the bishops are not going to rally and come out against them, they're in for quite a surprise.
Oh, I think they're in for quite a surprise, especially when these Spanish-speaking bishops start telling all their parishioners about Obama's record with abortion, partial birth abortions, let them die after they're born.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this is the most pro-abortion president we've ever had. I mean, he just...
Oh, undoubtedly.
Has attempted to...
He's bent over backwards for him. Well, he's ideologically one with them. It's not that he's bent over backwards for him. This is his ideology. He's a progressive or a Marxist. This is why he shows nothing but contempt, like you're talking about the Georgia courts, nothing but contempt for the American system.
Well, he did promise us change.
Yeah, that's yeah, it wasn't quite the change we were expecting. Although he did, he and Michelle were talking about a fundamental transformation of America. I don't think unfortunately, people understood that very differently than what he and the people who he brought into his administration actually meant.
Well, that's because our education system has dumbed people down. It was just standard Marxist rhetoric. Chavez used it, Castro used it, Stalin probably used it.
Yeah. So it's, but this is just going to create a standoff between the bishops and the administration.
Well, he just clearly doesn't believe in any of the Bill of Rights.
No.
I mean, we talk about Operation Gunwalking, Holder's there being contemptful of the whole Congress, saying that they should congratulate him, talk about brass balls.
Yeah.
He's either total incompetent, which I believe he is, or a liar, or both, which actually is what I believe.
Well, I think you're right in the fact that their view is that the state gives rights. They have no idea of the concept of the founding fathers that rights that are protected in the Bill of Rights are natural to us. We don't receive them from the state. They're natural to us as human beings. And
no, they don't. No, they don't believe the culture creates the government. They believe the government creates everything. Just listen to any of Elizabeth Warren's speeches, anything she's ever said. They have no belief in the culture.
Well, it is a problem, and it's going to because I've heard a number of the bishops have come out and said this is absolutely unacceptable, and the church will not adhere to any such demand by the. They will not provide it in their insurance. They will not participate in it. You know, so the challenge is already sizing up. And undoubtedly, this will wind up in the Supreme Court.
Well, yeah. Well,
which you have 5 Catholic justices.
If Obama gets elected a second term, you think he's disdainful now. Wait till he has nothing to lose.
Yeah, if he has. Well, the interesting thing, they're also the argument about Justice Kagan being able to participate in the review of the health care, because obviously as Solicitor General, they even have the emails that prove it. She had an active role in developing the strategy for promoting and defending the health care bill.
Well,
so she has to.
I don't understand why she just doesn't diffuse this controversy now and recuse herself.
Well, that's one of the problems. If she doesn't, then the court is going to have to the other justices are going to have to remove her from the case.
Oh yeah, because
which is going to be
its integrity. Yeah, the court loses its integrity. It has no authority.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Is the court's integrity is coming under assault. You know, in this instance, with the Supreme Court, with the president's attitude toward the court in Georgia, it's just, you know, if the court doesn't respond correctly in each of these cases, then the separation of powers suffers. The integrity of the court itself suffers, even if the separation of powers remains strong.
Yeah. No, the court will have no moral authority. It's just a matter of getting the right judge then, if they just become political hacks.
Yes, and that's one of the, and that's, I believe, how the administration is viewing them. You know, they're simply political appointees, and they don't believe in the separation of powers.
If they're just members of one party or another, it'll just rule party law, and the court loses all moral authority at that point.
It's reaching that point where we're really having to face the fact that if we don't act quickly and come to an understanding of what's going on, we are going to lose the republic entirely, and we will simply become a socialist state.
Yeah, the first republic of the United States is nearing its end.
Yes.
And they'll be able to tear up the Bill of Rights and the Constitution and rewrite it any way they want.
Well, they're not rewrite. They're just ignoring it. You know, by sort of like the British Constitution, it's becoming unwritten. It's becoming a series of precedents.
Yeah.
You know, it's no longer a written document which governs us as a nation of laws, not of men.
Well, yeah, then there's going to be a tug of war whether the sovereignty resides in the House of Representatives, the Congress, or the executive. We'll have to go to a parliamentary form of government if that happens.
Yeah. And it will.
Otherwise, you're going to have an Oliver Cromwell situation real quick.
Well, it seems that's what they're trying to establish. They're trying to reduce the Congress to a parliament, which rubber stamps whatever the executive sends them.
Yeah.
And the courts, courts are just there to give the government's interpretation and to give it the sanction of law.
That's right. If the judges start thinking they represent the government instead of the people, that's the end of it.
Yeah. Because that's the one thing courts are supposed to do is represent the people.
That's it. They were supposed to be the people's advocate, yeah.
And,
the states and the people's advocate against the all-powerful federal government.
Well, we're going to have to see what happens here because this is going to be a big challenge. The problem I see is for the Catholic Church. You know, the bishops have for the past 40 years simply ignored the teaching of Pope Paul VI in the encyclical Humanae Vitae, which restated the traditional and ancient Catholic understanding that contraception is immoral and intrinsically evil and should not be engaged in. And the bishops have not taught that, or they have not stood behind that teaching and made it forceful to the Catholic people of this country. And therefore, when they make this charge on the administration, they may look back and find they have no army behind them.
Yeah.
Because right now it's 90% of Catholic women contracept regularly, and 98% have contracepted periodically at some time in the past.
Well, yeah, the church is, when they let the progressives in, they basically let the heretics in the church and welcomed them.
Yes. And it,
they basically just let them in. They had no will to fight them for some reason. They thought they were friends, but they weren't.
And now it's, this is going to be the first big challenge that the church has had.
Once you understand that Marxism and progressivism is a religion, then it all starts to fall into place. And it's an intolerant religion. It's like radical Islam.
Yeah. It's just, because all it is worship, as you said, worship of the state. You know, worship of the collective.
Of the state.
And it cannot have any challenge to its authority. Can't have any rivals of any kind.
Yeah, that's why it's trying to get rid of talk radio and Fox News and all this. This is outrageous that there's a war against the press.
Oh, there's a movement to bring back the fairness doctrine.
Yeah, that's been talked about on and off since Obama became president because he seems to hate talk radio. He can't just ignore it like Bill Clinton did.
No. Well, it's a very powerful tool, as any media is. That isn't.
Well, I knew when the administration first took over, and they had pretty much the goodwill of everybody. Not me, but pretty much the goodwill of everybody. The first thing they did, instead of showing steps that they were going to move forward, is they started a war on Rush Limbaugh. I knew there was something wrong right then.
Well, they went after Glenn Beck, and all it did was drive him into his own television program, which is hugely successful. You know, and he doesn't have the constraints of MSNBC any longer. He's free to do exactly what he wants to do, and he's hugely popular in the in the arena of talk radio and television. You know, on internet television.
Oh yeah, Glenn Beck has been unleashed since he got off the TV.
Yeah, and it's.
So like I said, if you're of any religion, and even if you aren't of a religion, if you just happen to believe in the American system of separation of church and state, the classical Western conception of the separation of church and state, this administration is your enemy.
Well, we're going to have, it's, I think with SOPA, PIPA, all these things that are assaulting our ability to communicate, to organize, this is the beginning of a civil war.
Oh, yeah,
it's the beginning
of the breakup of the country.
Because we're going to, the division, we had the red states and the blue states, and that was terribly disturbing when it started, back in the Clinton administration, when there was that, well, I guess you have to really go back to the Reagan administration, really.
Yeah.
Because we had the, that's where that all began, and it has progressed over the past several administrations, and now it's become firmly fixed that there are two countries in America.
Well, the Marxists and the progressives realize this is their last chance.
Yes, if they don't get it done, then they're not going to.
They've gone into, they're bored, what they call it, boring in. They've been doing this since Reagan, This is their last chance. If they fail this time, that's it.
Yeah, because they'll lose out here.
Marxism has lost credibility everywhere in the world. They realize that this is their last chance. These are the true believers, so they're not going to back down this time. That's why Obama told the bishops and everybody, no, we're not backing down on this abortion. Doesn't matter.
Well, I saw a report today that from a man in Nigeria that, of course, Hillary Clinton went over on her tour of Africa and Asia and so on, and made it very clear to the Nigerian president, Goodluck Jonathan, that if they did not adopt a pro-abortion constitution, that all financial aid would be cut off. And of course, guess what happened?
So you said goodbye.
No, they adopted the Constitution.
Oh, they did?
Yes,
I'm surprised.
They did. Now they're pushing the adoption, not just the decriminalization of homosexuality in Nigeria, but the adoption of it, the protection and promotion of it, which of course is going to run up against the Islamic element of that society, as well as the Catholic and Anglican populace in that country.
Well,
because the Archbishop of Nigeria, the Anglican Archbishop, is the one who led the fight in the American Episcopal Church against the ordination of women bishops, but more importantly, against the promotion of same-sex marriage and homosexuality in the church.
I don't think the Nigerian government's going to lift a finger to enforce any of this stuff.
No, but we're trying to use our muscle to force other countries to adopt our culture, our values, and I just don't understand where that was ever our goal. No matter how much I may believe in certain things personally that I want to see happen in this country, I don't think we have a right to go overseas and try and force other countries into this social engineering.
Yeah, as we were talking about earlier, you do all these things at the local level. If they come from the top down, everybody resents them, and pretty soon you have a mess.
Well, I hear they've for example, the gay marriage bill in Washington has passed the Senate in Washington State and is on its way to the House of Representatives, where it will pass, and then the governor will sign it. However, if they gain enough signatures to challenge it, it will be on hold until November, when there's a referendum on this.
I mean, I'll come out. I'm all in favor of gay rights and everything, but like I said, I believe you organize at the local level, because once you convince people that way, there's not the resentment.
Yeah, It's just, well, the problem is that people, they're given the choice to vote, they vote, and then the courts come in and overturn it.
Yeah.
And people begin to become very resentful and very angry about that.
This is going to really just put another nail in the republic. It's going to break up.
Yeah, it's just people begin to divide into opposing camps on these issues. Which,
well, I heard survivalism, which basically no one's talked about since the Carter administration, is back big.
Yes. Well, this past Christmas was the largest year for gun sales ever.
Yeah.
Ever. And I've seen some sites where they're announcing that sell, preparation food packs and so on. There are none left. Everyone has bought it all up. You can't purchase it, for another 3 or 6 months while they're developing a new stock of it.
Yeah.
So people are getting really on edge.
Well, yeah. I don't really think this nation will survive another term of Obama if he gets reelected. I just don't see it happening.
Well, no, because as you said, without the constraints of having to run for reelection, who knows what will happen?
Oh, yeah. The progressive Marxist element knows this is really their last chance. Marxism's failing everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
This is really their last chance to try and turn a big nation.
But even the Russians aren't trying to bring it back. Even the Chinese abandoned it. Except for in the economic sphere, definitely. But they've kept it in sort of a governmental sphere.
Yeah, they just turned into the British East India Company. Talk about a country that's run like a corporation.
Yeah, and that's.
China's just one big British East India Company. The executive, I forget what they call themselves. The council is just basically the board of directors there.
Yeah. Well, this leads into my topic, where it's just sort of a continuation. Let's talk about the hearing in the state of Georgia that the president failed to attend or even send his attorney to make an appearance. A group of citizens are challenging the president's eligibility to be on the primary ballot in Georgia. They're claiming that he is not a natural-born citizen, which the Supreme Court defined in the Minor versus Halpert case in 1875, that a natural-born citizen is the offspring of parents, both of whom are citizens.
And since he's had two fathers that have both been foreign nationals, I can see where there's a question there.
Yeah, on that issue.
And I also understand that he got into, Harvard with a grant that was reserved for foreign students?
Yes, his position at Yale was reserved for a foreign student. It was a scholarship.
Yeah.
And
so obviously all that paperwork existed back then, and the question is what happened to it?
Well, they won't release it. There's also the issue, it got brought up in the court case in Georgia about the forgery of the birth certificate that was released to the public. We've had several experts who have testified before the court on how it was a forgery.
I can't believe they couldn't even get a better forgery together.
No, they couldn't.
I think it's because they were rushed, because Trump was pushing it back then.
Yeah. And it's, well, the issue here, though, is if people actually forged the birth certificate, that's an act of treason, because you've put someone who is a foreign national into office.
Yeah.
And that's a real serious issue.
Oh, yeah. Well, I understand that Obama's also had several Social Security numbers.
Yes, they're all different numbers.
Yeah, 12. Oh, 12, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a problem. You know, that's...
And yet the press, no one will look into this.
Well, I was thinking about that earlier today, and can you imagine what will happen if the courts determine that he is not a natural-born citizen and therefore is not a citizen? All those children who they've been claiming who were born to Mexican nationals or foreign nationals in this country, they've been claiming that because they were born here, they're citizens. And the Supreme Court's ruled, no, you're a natural-born citizen because your parents are citizens, not because you were born here. Can you imagine what that's going to do? What an upheaval that's going to cause.
I just cannot believe, like I said, the press has given this guy a free ride the whole time. We're at constitutional crisis everywhere with him.
Oh yeah, you know, we have a Justice Department that is corrupt. You know, third world countries have better justice departments than we do. You know, we have a president who's contemptuous of the Congress and of the courts.
Yeah, I remember Amnesty International was asking foreign countries to arrest Bush. Well, maybe they should get a letter up to turn Eric Holder over to Mexico. Maybe they could get some answers from him.
Yeah, I'm sure they could. Well, he'd probably start singing as soon as he found out we were going to deport him down there or extradite him.
Yeah, I think his memory would come right back if it said, well, we're going to turn you over to Mexico for questioning.
Well, that might be a solution to this problem, because he just continuously lies to Congress, even when there's documentary evidence contradicting what he's saying.
Oh, no, this guy just continually lies, constantly. He's another serial liar, just like his boss, the president.
Well, he's a perjurer. You know, and here we have the chief law enforcement officer in the administration perjuring himself repeatedly.
Lying to Congress. Yeah, lying to Congress. He should be in jail. Like I said, I actually favor his being shipped to Mexico, deported to Mexico. Who knows how many Mexicans those guns have killed.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised Mexico hasn't filed for his extradition, filed charges against him and sought his extradition.
Yeah.
You know, we seem to be able to file charges and bring about the extradition of other people. So I think we ought to be subject to the same standard.
Oh, yeah, I definitely think that he should be extradited to Mexico. Like I said, I'm sure his memory would be coming right back if he knew that was hanging over his head.
Well, you know what's going to happen. The president's he'll have to resign at some point, and the president will pardon him. Because he's been doing this in the Bush administration when he was a chief deputy. So he's not just been there in the Obama administration. He was doing this in the Bush administration.
Yeah.
So he's been...
Well, like I said, since unfortunately, the Obama administration has the whole mainstream media on his side. I think they're just going to try and last it out.
I don't know. Well, as long as they've got the media, until you can turn the media against you, or they will turn against you, as in the next, we saw that in Watergate. Until the media actually began reporting and people began understanding. And that took, 2.5 years?
Yeah. I would ask everybody who listens to us, go on CNN's wall, go on Fox's wall, although Fox is covering it somewhat, but go on CNN, NBC, and write, why aren't you covering this story? If they take it off, go on again and write it again.
Well, that's why they want the restraints on the internet. It is the one free medium of exchange that we have for ideas and opinions, news, and it can't be filtered. It can't be downplayed. So it's we have the tools, we have the power. We just need to learn to use it effectively. In fact, on our site today, there's a posting on SOPA and PIPA and how they're being resurrected. The Motion Picture Association is claiming that the reaction to the previous SOPA and PIPA bills was the result of Google and other large internet companies. So they're trying to blame. They don't understand that this was a grassroots movement. It came up.
No.
They simply. I was talking to Daniel while we were driving over to the studio this evening. They just simply the people at the motion picture industry and so on simply are old men who do not understand the change that the internet has affected worldwide.
No.
They don't understand it. They can't comprehend it. It may take 10 or 20 years for that to happen when the new, people who are familiar with the internet, who understand it, who are used to it, and utilize it, then come to replace those who don't.
Unless they change their business model, they're going to end up like Kodak. Kodak's ready to go under as we're speaking.
Yeah, and that's what the whole problem is they just simply ignored it for 20 years now. And they have no ability to adjust now. It's way ahead of them.
When you and I were growing up back in the late mid-20th century, if anybody had said Kodak would be in trouble, you would have laughed in their face.
Oh yeah, that would have been a ridiculous thing. They were one of the blue chip stocks. They were they were as sound as Ford or GM. And look, look what happened. We're just
well, you would have might have believed that Ford or GM would get in trouble with foreign cars, but Kodak never.
No, Kodak would have, and now it's disappearing as well because it couldn't make the adjustment. It didn't see it coming, and it didn't make any provision for the change.
No, because they were one of the companies that was on the cutting edge of technology through the whole early part of the 20th and middle part of the 20th century.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's a mess. I hate saying that every week, but it just seems that we're having to struggle with this, and I think that it's just going to come down to a huge battle between the corporations who are dinosaurs, who have not adjusted and kept up, and the people who have. Whose culture is based on the internet and on the free exchange of information and the development of new ideas.
Well, that's why like people like Thomas Friedman, who favor the old big business, want to go to the China model. They want to go to the East India Company model,
where they can control everything and clamp down and. But we're just not going to go back to that feudalistic idea.
We want to go back to a neo-colonialism, but they want the colonialism now even in their own countries.
Yes, well, that's where these transnationalist corporations, these internationalists and globalists, have no loyalty to any country. They only have loyalty to their own profit margin. And whatever control they can exercise over the worldwide culture. And they'll attempt to crush any country that gets in their way.
Unfortunately, we're living in interesting times, as the Chinese say.
Yeah, that's going to be very, very true. So.
Well, you want to talk about C.S. Lewis? We need some optimism.
Yeah.
Nobody can hear me because my microphone's dying, so you might want to repeat it. I've got a little video for everybody on a lighter note of technology. technology if you guys would like to see it.
Okay, Daniel's going to play for us a little video. It's a little lighter note on technology, and then we'll talk about C.S. Lewis, our author for the week.
He's everywhere and nowhere at the same time. He thinks at every subject in unreal time. Probing every sentence and all your punctuation. Got his nose in every colon in every situation. He's the Gmail man.
Zucchini. Volcano. Oh, lava. Birthday. Thanks, polar bears.
Hey, mailman. Are you looking at our mail?
No, I'm looking at everyone's mail.
How can you do that?
Well, sometimes when a person really loves their Gmail very, very much, the two get together and an ad is born.
Ew. You can't do that, mailman.
Of course I can. I'm not a mailman. I'm the Gmail man.
Gmail man.
Good morning, senders and receivers. Carolyn Johnson, get up off of that painful itching and burning of yours and come check this out. Little relief there? Probably feels good, right?
No, what, have you been reading my mail?
No, just skimming. For certain keywords, burning and sensation, cat, and dander. Good news is there's an ointment for 4 out of 4 of those, brought to you by Pharmaceutico. Would you like a free 2-week trial?
No, actually I wouldn't, because I was actually writing about a lasagna. I was afraid of burning, and my husband said it was sensational. I have a cat named Andy, but you know, it's really actually none of your business.
It's my business, your business. It's all business. It's the business of advertising, personalized for whatever you're Gmailing.
Isn't that kind of wrong?
Who cares?
Gmail man. His favorite game is peekaboo, his favorite word, so what? He smiles in your face when you stutter, but. His ads are unsolicited, based on what you type. Makes you want to ditch Gmail and go Office 365. He's the Gmail man.
There you go. I've kind of noticed that on my, I get these very strange ads when I go to log into Google or do a search or something. These strange ads appear on the right-hand side of the computer screen. Or I get these strange emails. They come directly to my email about taking out loans to become a X-ray technician or a nurse or a paralegal or something else. So
Yeah.
they all seem to be
Basically.
data mining. The data mining is just incredible, but it's often very off. Because the words are not. It's not well done apparently, because it winds up sending me things I'm not even interested in. So, but I know that they were mining the data for keywords or phrases that they could use to advertise to me. So, well, on to C.S. Lewis. I'm sure most of our viewers are familiar with him, for no other reason, the Narnia movies, based on his fantasy novels, The Chronicles of Narnia. Some may have also seen The Moonlands, which was a biographical movie about C.S. Lewis. He was born on the 29th of November, 1898, and died on the 22nd of November, 1963, the same day that President Kennedy was assassinated. He was a prolific author. He was a Christian theologian and apologist. He was a medieval and Renaissance professor of medieval and Renaissance literature, both at Oxford and at Cambridge universities. And he is recognized as probably the world's expert at the time on Renaissance and medieval literature. He provided the article, or the segment, of the famous History of English Literature produced by Oxford University. He married late in life a woman named Joy Davidman. She was a Christian convert. She had been a communist before that, and had actually been involved in the Spanish Civil War. She was a poet, and she developed cancer early in their marriage, and died of that disease about 5 years before Lewis himself died. She had 2 sons, David and Douglas. In the movie Shadowlands, it only represented Douglas, I think because David was rather rebellious and a troublesome teenager, and so they just represented Douglas in the movie, who has done several interviews. You can find them on YouTube about his memories of C.S. Lewis.
Were these sons by C.S. Lewis?
I'm sorry?
Were these sons of C.S. Lewis?
No, adopted sons.
Adopted, okay.
Yeah, stepsons. Their mother was Joy Davidman, the woman that he married.
Okay.
And of course, he wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, excellent series of children's stories. Also, he wrote a space trilogy, science fiction trilogy.
That's what I'll always remember him for.
Yeah, I read those when we were in junior high school, I think.
Yeah, we read those together and discussed all those books thoroughly.
Yeah, they were very interesting, and provided a lot of enjoyable hours of discussion and analysis. He also wrote Surprised by Joy, which was sort of his spiritual autobiography. He also wrote just a number of books. Ones that I would recommend are God in the Dock, Surprised by Joy, and some of his other theological works. He was a significant theologian and apologist. He was friends with J.R.R. Tolkien and other famous writers of the time who formed a group called the Inklings. And there's a book by that title which is available, which provides an interesting study of the various authors at Oxford and Cambridge who have provided us with a lot of our modern-day literature that we enjoy so much. So, Lewis had a brother, Major.
I would just like to.
I'm sorry.
I would just like to add that now that I'm writing, if there's any young writers out there, he's a great model.
Yes, yes. If you want to learn, if people who are learning the art of writing should really study C.S. Lewis. There are a couple of people you ought to study: Francis Bacon, C.S. Lewis, Oscar Wilde. Some of these are just great. They're word craftsmen. They're masters of the English language, and they have that great skill of being able to very effectively write and convey ideas.
Whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction, he's just an absolute perfect model for any young writer.
Yes, so I encourage you to read his works. And as I said, there's a movie called Shadowlands. I believe you can still find it on YouTube. And it's a biography of his life. And of course, if you want to really understand him and his spiritual journey, you need to read Surprised by Joy. I would read God in the Dock because he addresses some difficult issues. There's also the problem of pain, which he wrote following the death of his wife, Joy Davidman, when his faith was severely challenged by this question of why do good people suffer bad things, or why do bad things happen to good people, as the book by Kirshner asks. But I would certainly recommend that people read his work, become familiar with him, because as Eric pointed out, he is one of the great writers in the English language. Anything else you wanted to add, Eric?
Oh, like I said, I've enjoyed everything I've read by him. He's a master both of fiction and nonfiction. If you have any interest in writing, any young people that have any interest in writing, he's a great guy.
Yeah, he's one of the few authors who could, most authors can't really transition from nonfiction to fiction. Whereas Lewis could write nonfiction, he could write fiction, he could write history.
Children's stories.
He just covered all fields of literature, which makes him exceptional. Because most authors kind of have their particular niche, and they don't make the transition to another field of writing very easily or very effectively, whereas Lewis definitely was able to do that. So,
and the other thing I'd like to add is me and David had a lot of fun with the Space Trilogy. If you do happen to have a book club and you need a book to discuss, they're just rich in ideas, a pleasure to read.
Yeah, 3 volumes, the whole series is very challenging. It brings in a lot of moral concepts. The writing itself is entertaining, the stories are entertaining, but they challenge you to think about certain questions, and so we'd highly recommend C.S. Lewis to all of our viewers. Well, that seems to be about it for this week. I'd like to remind everyone of Eric's blog at processidealismblogspot.com. He's had a few recent postings. Again, I'd recommend that you read the Transvaluation of the Vampire. It got me to thinking on some works that I had read and seen, and maybe I'll do some writing on that in the future as well. So it inspired me. Hopefully it will give you, because this is such a significant part of our modern culture, especially with our young people right now, those between the tweens and their mid-20s. So we'd recommend that you visit Eric's blog, again, at processidealismblogspot.com. We'd also want to remind you of Daniel's blog at danielheath.com. And Daniel's had several posts as well. Please visit. He posts some challenging and interesting articles, especially if you're a techno geek. You'll be very interested in the things that he's posting. If you're not, you'll be able to come to understand some of those things that seem mysterious to you. If you're like me, I read some things, I begin to understand more. So we encourage you to visit danielheath.com. We encourage you to look at the articles which we posted for this episode. There are a number of various subjects that are being discussed. Especially, I'd like to encourage you to visit the posting on the case in Canada, the honor killing case, where a Afghan man and his second wife and son murdered his three daughters and his first wife, and were found guilty of that crime and sentenced to life in prison. So we have to keep up on these things and realize that there are some things that just aren't acceptable in Western culture, and we have to be sure that we stand up against those. So thank you for joining us for this week. We encourage you to write us, communicate with us. Our Twitter hashtag, WIRTV, and also our email address is David, Eric, or Daniel at weekinreview.tv. Thank you again, and have a good week. I cannot tell a lie.
I cannot tell what a lie is.